And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hello everyone, it's great seeing you again, and thanks for joining us for the marine segment on this 13th day of October 2025. Up first, forecast for tonight, next developing system here bringing increasing wind and rain eastward here across the Aleutians into Atka Island, and showers to the southwest coast, Alaska Peninsula with light winds over all of the interior, including the Arctic coast here down into the Gulf of Alaska. Another system coming northward here. The one brought the rain today, weakens into a trough and keeps it unsettled here over the southeast interior down into northern Cook Inlet. Warm front rains keeping it wet for the eastern North Gulf Coast. And for tomorrow, that low tracks into Canada, and that will keep it wet for the North Gulf Coast, although diminishing rain in the late afternoon there. Showers at times for south central Alaska. Actually, the interior just looking pretty showery tomorrow. Gusty winds and rain for the central and northern panhandle, and then gale and storm force winds associated with this low center here. So gusty north winds, maybe up to 60 miles an hour there on the backside of this low, with that center just south of the chain there. And good gales here and rain with this front for the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. That low tracks up to the Alaska Peninsula on Wednesday, a little bit to the northeast there. Front bringing storm force winds into the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay area. Gales for the North Gulf Coast, increasing wind and rain for the north coast of the Panhandle. Dry over the interior, and then this low on Thursday splits in two. Actually, it doesn't split in two. A separate center develops with this trough back through here as this low tracks, wrong way there, as this low tracks, there we go, up to just south of Montague Island Thursday afternoon. So that's going to put a lot of moisture and gusty winds with this front into the Panhandle there. Rain from the Queen Charlottes all the way up into probably Burwash and then westward across the North Gulf Coast. Some of that could find its way into portions of the Copper River Basin, but not too heavy. And wet and gusty winds with this low center there over the Kuskokwim Bay area, actually just north of Togiak Bay. Isolated rain or snow showers here over the central, maybe the eastern interior, otherwise dry. This next system, much weaker, and kicks off to the east and southeast on Friday. Just a couple of lows barely on the chart there. So it becomes quite light, or it gets pretty quiet here out over the Bering Sea with just some shower activity there for Friday. Troughs tracking southeastward here. Each one has a little bit colder air following in behind there, but mostly rain for Bristol Bay. A mix here along the southwest coast. Low pressure pulls up into, right over Turnagain Arm, give or take there. So from there eastward from the North Gulf Coast, down the southeast coast, periods of rain, gusty winds. And then we'll see for the south coast tomorrow of the Panhandle, look for south winds 20 to 25 knots, and then stronger winds here for the north coast, anywhere from south to southeast at 30 to 35 knots. Definitely looking at gales up here for the north coast. And for Lynn Canal, gale warnings also, southeast winds 35 knots, 25 knot southerly winds there for Stevens Passage, north at 15 for Clarence Strait. And then for Wednesday, southeast winds 20 to 25 knots on the south coast of the Panhandle, east to southeast winds 30 to 40 knots for the north coast, seas anywhere from 8 to 14 feet up to the north, 7 feet to the south. Lighter winds, slighter seas over the inside waters, all areas there looking at southeasterlies at 10 to 15 knots. Prince William Sound tomorrow, southeast at 20, small craft advisories for the eastern North Gulf Coast, for south to southeast winds at 25 knots and 8-foot seas. West at 20 here for the western North Gulf Coast, and southwest 20 for the Barren Islands. For Kamishak Bay, west winds 15 knots, southwest 15 for Cook Inlet. And then a big increase in the winds here coming up for Wednesday. Gale warnings all at Cook Inlet here, northeast 35 to 40 knots, seas up to 11 feet. Storm warnings for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, east winds 50 to 55 knots. And we've got gales and storms for the North Gulf Coast as well. East winds 45 to 55 knots with seas up to 13 feet. Gale warnings for Prince William Sound, east winds at 40 knots and seas at 10 feet. Tuesday for Kodiak Island, southwest at 20. Gale warnings here coming into the western Alaska Peninsula south, increasing to 40 knots tomorrow afternoon, and southeast at 20 for Bristol Bay. And then the forecast for Wednesday, strong west winds here, gale force westerlies for the Alaska Peninsula. 35 to 45 knots, seas up to 15 feet. Southeast at 40 knots for Bristol Bay with 6-foot seas. 40-knot winds also in the forecast for Kodiak Island from the east in Chillicothe Strait to the southeast at 40 knots with seas 10 to 13 feet. And for the Fox Islands tomorrow, full gales southeast at 45 knots, 9 to 22-foot seas. East at 40 for Adak and Atka, seas up to 17 feet. Lighter winds out here to the west at 20 to 30 knots from north to northwest directions. And then for the day on Wednesday, for Kiska to Shimia, look for west to southwest winds at 20 knots. Otherwise, 20 to 25 knot westerlies for Amchitka Island, increasing to 30 knots from the west for Adak and Atka. And then gale warnings for the eastern Aleutians, west winds 35 to 45 knots with seas up to 17 feet. And for the southwest coast and St. Lawrence Island tomorrow, as well as Norton Sound, all looking at south winds 15 to 20 knots, but seas only 3 to 4 feet. And for the Pribilof Islands, south winds 25 knots with 8-foot seas, east at 15, seas 6 feet for St. Matthew Island. Outlook for Wednesday, big increase in the winds out this way, especially for St. Matthew Island, the Pribilofs, north 30 knots, 10-foot seas, northeast, northwest 35 for the Pribilofs with 10-foot seas. Gale warnings for the Kuskokwim Delta coast, northeast 35 knots, that'll keep the seas down to 7 feet. And east at 25 knots there for the Yukon Delta coast, east 25 for Norton Sound, and east at 20 for St. Lawrence Island. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, not too bad. Southwest wind 10 to 15 knots, 2 to 3-foot seas there. South at 15 for the central coast, 3-foot seas. South at 20, seas 5 feet for the western coast and the Chukchi Sea. Light south winds 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 4 feet. And then for the day Wednesday, the Chukchi Sea, a little breezier, not too bad though, east-southeast at 20 knots. Western Arctic coast, south at 10, south 15 for the central coast, and south to southeast winds at 10 knots for the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline.